my name is Evan Amato, and today you're watching Develop with Dante, where we look at the Divine Comedy through the lens of self-development. Now, if you've not already watched the intro video to the series, I encourage you to go do so because it'll tell you exactly what's going on and what we're exploring. But if you've already seen that, then you know what we're talking about. And, in particular, you know that today we're diving into the fourth terrace of Purgatory, which covers the sin of sloth, or better put, Acedia. So, what exactly is Acedia? Well, where sloth is mere laziness, Acedia is something far more sinister. What Acedia is essentially seeing beauty in being unmoved. It's knowing what's right, but not really caring enough to do anything. And Acedia is at the heart of so many problems, both personal and societal. And today, we're going to dive into that and see what Dante has to teach us. How does Acedia harm us? Well, the lack of love and wonder that stems from Acedia causes us to be unconcerned about our position in life. Not only that, but it also leads us to become indifferent to our duties and obligations. This plays out, of course, on a societal and personal level. On a societal level, we become indifferent to the woes of society, indifferent to administering justice or doing what is right by others. But on a personal level, it means that we become indifferent to ourselves. We don't care about our lives because we're living lives where we are unmoved by beauty, unmoved by joy and wonder and excitement. And this ultimately leads us to depression. What is Dante's insight for us regarding the sin of Acedia? Well, we see this very clearly as we dive into this terrace of Purgatory. What we see is that the souls there are running around in haste. And the reason they're running in haste is because they're trying to embody the virtue of zeal. Now Dante, what he does is he identifies zeal as the opposite and corresponding virtue to the sin of Acedia. The reason he does so is because he recognizes that there are several elements that make up zeal. The first of which is care that drives us to action. Okay, so zeal is very action-based. And Dante gives us an example from the life of Julius Caesar during the Civil Wars, where before fighting Pompey in Greece, Caesar had to go and win some key strategic victories in both France and Spain. So he did that. He was full of zeal. He went and did these, won these battles, and then went east to Greece to face off against Pompey. But after that, the second example that Dante gives is that zeal also is comprised of wonder and awe. And so he gives us particularly an example from the life of the Virgin Mary, which is Mary running to Elizabeth's house after the Annunciation. Now, the reason she does so is because she's full of joy and wonder and excitement. She actually says what is now known as the Magnificat, which is a prayer that says, "My soul proclaims the greatness of the Lord." And Dante suggests this prayer for us because he recognizes that in order for us to be moved, to experience joy and wonder and excitement, we need to proclaim the greatness of something. And for Mary, that is the greatness of the Lord. But for us, it can be the greatness of beautiful art, music, and literature. These are things that move us, that cause us to care, to take action, and to be moved, again, experiencing joy, wonder, and excitement for ourselves in a way that leads us away from depression and helps us overcome the sin of Acedia. As Dante leaves this terrace of Purgatory, he comes across an angel who pronounces a blessing upon him in the form of a beatitude. And now the beatitude chosen for this terrace is, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted." The reason Dante selects this as the beatitude for this particular terrace is because the sin of Acedia is a sin of not caring. It's a sin of deficient love, not caring as we should about ourselves and the world. And now, mourning, in contrast, is a state of caring deeply. And so, blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. The reason they shall be comforted is because care drives us to take action. Care means that we have a vested interest in what we're doing. We saw this in the example of Caesar. It also means that we can be full of joy and wonder about things, in the case of Mary. But ultimately, the reason we shall be comforted is because the combination of this, the combination of joy, wonder, and care that drives us to action, results in a better life. This is the type of care that drives us to improve, that drives us to seek out the things that truly matter. And for that reason, we shall be comforted. I hope you enjoyed this dive into the fourth terrace of Purgatory. If you like this video, be sure to like and comment. Let me know what you're thinking about it. And please, if you're not, subscribe to this channel. The next video, we'll cover the fifth terrace of Purgatory, the terrace of greed. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you then.